Now let's get to the Beckhams. It's been a chaotic week for the Beckham family. We saw earlier this week that extraordinary statement from eldest son Brooklyn lashing out at his parents, particularly his mother Victoria, also known as Posh Spice. Kinsey, David and Victoria Beckham would be gutted naturally, but sources are saying they are blaming Nicola, their son's wife, not him, and they're only going to speak to him if he splits from her. What more can you tell me about what's happening in that family?
Well, they have tried to communicate with him without her presence for years at this point. They find Nicola to be a pretty terrible influence, and they just want one-on-one time with their son. I think they would communicate with him while he was still married to her. I really do. But they are desperate for privacy and to set the record straight without Nicola, who seems to be a troublemaker and an instigator.
Look, I've tried to not pass judgment on this because you never know what's happening behind closed doors. You don't know if you're being manipulated by clever spin doctors who are painting a particular picture. So I've tried to have some sympathy for Brooklyn, but I've got to say the comments he made about his mother are just terrible. They are just so low, very Harry and Meghan like the airing of the dirty laundry and some of those accusations that are just going to not be forgotten. Are we ever going to see that wedding video, that infamous dance at the wedding that formed part of his complaint that his mother was inappropriate dancing on him? Are we ever going to see the video and be able to make up our own minds about what happened that night?
You know, Victoria's a dancing queen. We saw her dance in the Spice Girls. She was one of the worst dancers. So I have a really hard time believing that she pulled out all the stops for Brooklyn's wedding. But two things can be true. Brooklyn
Oh,
can expect
no.
more emotionally from his parents, and the way he's expressing that publicly can be toxic. And according to page six, Brooklyn and Nicola had allegedly reached a point of frustration with reading things that weren't true. Get a job, and you'll have much less time to Google yourself. This is a kid who hasn't worked a day in his life.
Oh, no, no, no. He did have that photography book, which I'm sure he got that deal just because his photography is top notch. I thought Victoria was the best of the Spice Girls when it came to dancing. I thought she was selected mainly for her dancing, not her singing. But we may have to save this debate for another day about who was the worst dancer amongst amongst the Spice Girls. Let's talk about the new development in the battle between It Ends With Us co-stars Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni. Blake Lively's text messages with Taylor Swift, an email to Ben Affleck, and statements from Jenny Slate and Isabella Ferreira's depositions about Justin Baldoni have all been unveiled. What have we learned, Kinsey?
A lot. And it's not a positive reflection on anyone, especially Blake Lively, Ryan Reynolds, and Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift calls Justin Baldoni the B word in these text messages between her and Blake Lively.
Mm.
And one of the reasons why people care about this is A, Taylor was like, I had nothing to do with this. I'm not involved publicly. And B, remember when she talked about just desperate for sympathy, public sympathy, and talked about how when Kanye called her the B word, how traumatizing that was for her. And then she goes and does the same thing to
Mm.
Justin Baldoni. But, you know, Blake and Ryan sliding into the inboxes of A-listers en masse with derogatory portrayals of Justin arguably caused greater reputational harm than Baldoni's team allegedly amplifying a TikToker or two. I think we all walk away hating all of these people. And I think they're going to regret this case at the end of the day.
No one comes out of this looking particularly good, do they? Now, Katy Perry has joined former Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau at the World Economic Forum in Davos. I played some footage of that earlier. But during his speech, Trudeau referenced a recent date with an American girl at a rooftop bar in Montreal. He said when she ordered a Jack and Coke, the server kindly informed her that there was no more American alcohol, not just in that bar, but anywhere in Montreal and probably anywhere across the entire country. There's an example, that's an example of Canadians standing up for each other. That's an example of soft power, being motivated to be there for each other at a time of stress, at a time of anxiety. Oh gosh, Kinsey, these two deserve each other.
I think it's an example of how cheap Canada is. But, I would need a Jack and Coke too if I were to let that guy cop a feel. I think he's the biggest creep. But
I
why? But why are we platforming losers who quit their jobs is my real question. It's the second coming of Prince Harry, Justin Trudeau, coming to a Toronto Hilton real estate convention near you. I don't care what he has to say, neither do Canadian truck drivers. This man has no backbone.
Mhm. Well, yeah, all this talk about Canadian unity and soft power. Well, where was that when he was seizing bank accounts and targeting Canadian truckers who were just wanting to work? So, yeah, when it counted, he was an absolute tyrant. And talking about tyrants during COVID, Gavin Newsom has been humiliated at the Economic Forum after he was denied entry into the US clubhouse. It came after Newsom rushed out of Donald Trump's keynote speech to tell reporters that it was remarkably insignificant. White House spokeswoman Anna Kelly told the New York Post no one in Davos knows who third rate governor Newsom is or why he is frolicking around Switzerland instead of fixing the many problems he created in California. Ouch, Kinsey. That's a pretty harsh assessment there.
Pretty accurate assessment. Gavin Newsom isn't governing, he's auditioning. While we struggle with homelessness, drugs, and rising crime, he's globetrotting and posturing for a 2028 presidential run. The desperation to be seen has become embarrassing. I'm feeling the secondhand embarrassment while I'm looking at the man on the screen. And the neglect back home is the real scandal.
And when it comes to the film and TV industry, he's failing even there. California has suffered a massive drop, 20% fewer movies and TV projects last year. And this is even after Newsom rolled out record tax incentives to try to keep Hollywood at home, Kinsey.
California didn't lose film and television by accident. This is an industry the state was branded on and has been for, ever. And it's declining on Newsom's watch despite those massive incentives. That's not bad luck, that's failed leadership, and it should disqualify him from higher office.
It should, but as we discussed earlier on the program with Josh Hammer, he's a front runner. He may be the front runner, and his only real competition at the moment seems to be Kamala Harris. So that is good news for the Republicans, I've got to say, Kinsey. If the next Democratic presidential candidate is Gavin Newsom or Kamala Harris, the Republicans are going to be looking forward to that race.
I mean, the ghost of Joe Biden is more appealing to me than Gavin Newsom, Kamala Harris, or I was afraid you were going to say AOC, and then I was going to verbally vomit
Ooh.
or vomit. But yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Gavin Newsom would be such a blessing to the GOP.
Kinsey Schofield, thank you so much for your time tonight.